Hello, and welcome to the first BRC introduction training. My name is Megan Sullivan, and I am joined with Michelle Kramer.
Hi, well, Megan is our BRC manager. I am our BRC technology consultant. So we're happy to be with you here today.
Today, we are starting a series of trainings for our background record check program portal. We introduced this new system to you about a year ago, and we had training videos up on our website at that time. And we have heard lots of feedback. There's been change of administrators, and we wanted to offer live trainings. We will also have video recording of these trainings as well, available on our website. But we wanted to offer these trainings. Our goal is to have either a 2 or 3 part session. So today's session is going to be just a brief intro of a program's responsibilities and a candidate's responsibilities when it comes to background record checks, and then how to actually enter a candidate into our system for the first time. So we will have emails going out to you in the next couple of weeks for session 2, which will be a different session, more in depth of the BRC program portal system. And then potentially, depending if we need a session 3, that will be at a later date. We will try and offer these on a quarterly basis. So if you miss our first go around, you are more than welcome to join us again the next time we offer these 2 to 3 part session trainings later on this year. Another reason we are trying to do this is we are trying to help you be in compliance with BRC regulations, as well as potentially your licensing regulations, and help you understand the system more in order to comply with those. We are going to jump over to our website. So if you go to mass.gov/EEC, you will come to our homepage of our website. We offer a lot of information for programs, parents. So we invite you to come search our website. But for today's specific training, we are going to focus your attention to the background record check area. So you would scroll down to what would you like to do? And there we have an EEC background record check tab. You would click on that tab. And then we introduce you to our background record checks. Our background record check is composed of various components to the background. We do a query, which is a criminal record check. We do a DCF check, which is from the Department of Children and Family Services, and we do a child welfare check. We also do a SORI check, which is a Massachusetts Sex Offender Registry check, as well as an NSOR check, which is a National Sex Offender check as well. So the SORI is the in-state Massachusetts, and then the NSOR is a national one. When applicable, we also do a out-of-state child welfare check. So that is for anyone that lives or has lived out of Massachusetts within the last 5 years. That would be applicable to our residential programs. If you scroll down, we have various tabs as well that will help you with the background record check tasks. We have a tab where you can log into our background record check system. We also have a tab where you can access our ServiceNow system, which is what we refer to as our ticketing system. And then we have our frequently asked questions. where you can go and refer back to certain questions that may have been asked in the past that we may have addressed. We would like you to get familiar with the BRC policies. So on today's training, we will introduce you to that page, as well as we also have a training resource, so you can locate more of these training videos, and then a quick reference guide for our system. We also offer our regulations as well as entries for other states. Here is our policy page. Again, we would like you as a licensee and a BRC program administrator to familiarize yourself with the appropriate background record check policies that apply to your program type. A BRC is ran every 3 years. So it is good for 3 years for a candidate to get fingerprinted. However, there may be certain circumstances that require a new BRC to be done outside of that time frame. But generally speaking, a candidate must go through an EEC background record check every 3 years. We would also like you to pay attention to certain timeframes of the candidate so that you're aware. A candidate must get fingerprinted within 21 days of receiving the letter. If they are not fingerprinted within that time frame, they will be canceled and closed out of the system within 45 days of receiving that fingerprint notice, and you as the program would have to re-enter them again. There is also an out-of-state check. So again, if a candidate has lived or does live out of state within the last 5 years, they may be required to do an out-of-state child welfare check. And depending on the state that they live in, there's certain requirements by these states that the candidate themselves have to process. EEC is not allowed to start that process, so we do reach out to the candidate and let them know that they are required to start that process. And so if a candidate does not start that process, again, within a certain time frame, they will be marked not suitable for failure to respond, and they would then not be allowed to be in the program, and they would have to be re-entered and start the process, including a new fingerprint all over again. And then the last time frame that is really important is on the candidate. Again, is if EEC has reached out for any additional documentation and we have not received a response from the candidate within 45 days, they will also be marked not suitable for failure to respond, and they would need to be out of the program within 14 days if they are in the program. Otherwise, they cannot return until a full suitability, which would require a new BRC, including new fingerprints. So again, just wanted to highlight some of those timeframes. But again, we'd like you to make sure that you familiarize yourself with this page of BRC policies. They are, some have been updated in the last few months, and we are anticipating on updating several others on this website as well in the next few months as well. So please make sure to revisit this page often so that you do familiarize yourself with, especially who is required to have a background record check done in your program and things like that. Again, generally speaking, a background record check is required for any candidate, and we'll refer to candidate as the person that is applying to the position in your program. The candidate, if they would have unsupervised access to children, they are required to have an EEC background record check. So that is our website. We are going to now switch over to introducing our consent form. Hopefully you are all aware of this consent form. Our most updated consent form is from September 2023. So if you are not using that version, please make sure that you obtain that document off the program portal and are using the most current consent form for our background check. It is important to use this most current one, as we've updated some more checks, and we need to have an authorized permission to run those checks. So again, either print this out and keep it on hand, or you can download it each time you enter program portal and have a candidate fill it out. On this consent form, you will see the lead program number. That can be obtained either through the lead program portal or through the BRC program portal as well. Each program has a unique P number that identifies themselves. We ask that you, as the role as the licensee or the BRC admin, fill that out, as the candidate would not know that information. And so that you fill that out for them. And then you can also pick the role that the candidate is applying for. Other than that, we ask that the candidate fills out the form themselves. They can do it electronically or they can hand it printed. We ask that if it is hand printed, that they are writing legible so that everyone can read and identify the letters that are being handwritten on this identification form. When entering the personal information, we please ask you to make sure that the candidate is writing their legal name, which matches their ID. So if they are using a passport or if they are using a license, that they enter their name on this consent form exactly how it appears on their photo identification. This will help alleviate any issues when they attempt to get fingerprinted, that their information matches the system at the fingerprinting agency. So if a candidate has a middle name on their license, please make sure to enter that. In the past, residential and placement only had the ability to write a middle initial. So I know that has been, a practice that you guys have gotten acquainted with. However, we ask again that you write the full name that is on the ID. If you scroll down, you will see that we have an alias field. This field includes any past names, which includes a maiden name, a hyphenated name, or any real name that the candidate has ever used, which could be a middle name and that is adopted as their first name that they go by, any kind of nickname that is used very often that they refer to. We ask that they write any and all names, again, that has ever been used. A real important field is the email address. This is a required field, and it needs to be a unique email address. This cannot be an address shared by any other person. And this is the main communication that EEC uses with the candidate. And so it is crucial that that is entered into the system correctly so that the candidate can get the correct documentation in order for the BRC to process forward. Again, everything on this form, we do ask that you fill out as a required field unless you don't actually have that information. But you would fill out your phone number, your date of birth, and then their birth city and state and country. For the Social Security, I want to highlight that we ask for the last 6 digits, not 4 digits. Sometimes that can be missed and a candidate only writes the last 4, as that's commonly usually asked for. However, we do ask for the last 6, so make sure you're confirming that you have 6 digits when you're receiving this consent form. And again, that is a required field unless a candidate has never been issued a Social Security number. Another thing to highlight on our consent form is that we do offer more options for gender identity than our system does have. We did want to make sure that we are offering many options. But again, our system is limited to only 3 fields. So if anything outside of male or female is checked on this consent form, you would enter that into the system as other. And we will show you later on when we enter the BRC program portal. You will scroll down to the current residential address. This is where the candidate currently lives. And if their mailing address is the same, you can just check that box. Otherwise, you would provide their mailing address, and any documentation that needs to be mailed out would go to the appropriate address. Another highlight that is new to some R&P programs is the out-of-state address. Again, I am highlighting that this is for anyone that currently lives out of Massachusetts or has lived out of Massachusetts within the last 5 years, that you provide any and all locations for our documentation. If you are unaware, if the candidate is unaware of the actual dates, say they know it was sometime in May they lived there, but they don't know what day, they can just certainly say May 1 of 2024 and go from there. But again, any and all states is required. We then have you scroll down and we ask that the candidate reads all their information and what they're consenting to before signing the actual agreement of this consent form, and that they authorize EEC to conduct these background record checks. They will check that box and then they will sign the documentation. If a candidate is under the age of 18, it does require that a parent or guardian signs the consent form as well. So again, this is our most updated consent form. If this is not the form that you have been currently using, we please ask you to immediately start using this one. And this can again be obtained from the background record check program portal system, which we will show you momentarily.
Thanks, Megan. So we're going to transition over to the BRC program portal. I'm on the welcoming page right now, but what you do is you're going to enter BRC program portal .mass.gov, and it will bring you to the site that you want to utilize. I'm actually utilizing a training site today for this demo, so I'm entering something slightly different. But in the email that you received when you were provisioned to be a licensee or a BRC program admin, it gives you the exact BRC program portal.mass.gov link. You will land on a screen just like this. If you have not done your provisioning in that email, if you have not followed the instructions to set up your account, we will show you how to do that a little bit later in this. But for me today, I am going to log in. I enter the email address, which is the address to which I was invited. This is that same address that was entered for me on that consent form. And I go ahead and I click sign in. And it tells me that that verification is necessary. And I tell it to send me a verification code. We do have a multi-factor authentication, and I will need to log into my Gmail account here for that. And you will notice that I receive an email from Microsoft on behalf of mass.gov. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And here is the code that has been sent to me today. If you use Gmail like I do, I had logged in earlier today, and Gmail just layers the different emails on top of each other with your code. You go ahead copy and paste or type your code in here and click Verify Code. In this case, I've entered the right number, and so my email address has been verified and it states that I can continue. If I had entered something incorrectly, it would tell me I was not accepted and I would try again. There is a forgot password there as well. If by chance you actually have forgotten your password, you can get assistance. When you log in to the BRC program portal, as it states on the top left here, we're on the dashboard screen. Along the left side here, we have the dashboard, which looks like the elevator floors. And we'll come back to this in a moment. If you hover over any of these items, it will tell you what that tab does. This particular tab is the submissions index. And when we click on this, this actually shows us all of the candidates that are in the navigator for the umbrella that you are logged in as. It does it for applicants, for all staff, and inactive. Applicants are those people who have applied to work for you. They could be in process. They might be completed. And then you have people on your all staff tab. These are the people that are working in your umbrella as of today. Please note, we have a very small amount of data here to keep it clean and concise for helping during training. And on the inactive tab, this is somebody who no longer works for our umbrella. The next tab down states it's a new submission. And this is where we would enter any new candidate. The next tab is the BRC support tool that Megan also mentioned earlier when we were on the website, but you can actually click this and it will take you directly to the ticketing and you can enter a ticket. So if you're in the middle of utilizing our BRC program portal and you have a question or issue, you can submit a ticket right here from this site. We also have a link to the training from here. So we got you covered on getting to those videos and everything. And the very last item that we have is specifically for our residential and placement partners. It's called R&P Reports. And when we click on this, this is where you get reports with data that's relevant to what was in the BRC Manager in the old system. When you do click on any of these reports, if it's your very first time, you will go through a setup process, and it sometimes takes 24 to 48 hours before you actually have access. Our goal today is cover the basics. And so what we really want to talk about at this point is getting another candidate into the system. So you just saw the consent form, and that candidate has provided you with their consent form, and you have gone through and verified that you can read it because you're the one that needs to do the data entry. You verified that there are 6 digits on that social security number, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to go ahead and enter a candidate. And I'm entering John Ryan, born January 1st, 1980. You notice we have a little question mark over here where you can click that if you're looking to see any information or any assistance. But again, this name that's entered here should be the legal name that's from the consent form. This is the name that we then send out for the background record checking. You come down to applicant has social security number, and we do default you to yes. The reason we do that is that most people should have a social security number. There are some that don't, and you would change that to no. But here you're going to enter the 6-digit social security number. Megan referenced earlier, if you need the consent form, this is where you can get that consent form that's dated September of 2023. So you can come here to this screen, even if you're not ready to enter a new candidate, and download a form so that you have it on your computer and can email it out to a candidate or print it. But then the question is applicant consent received. I, as the program representative, am responsible for confirming that I have the consent form in my hands. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes, I do, and enter search. You might ask why we're using the term search, because it said enter a new candidate. Anytime you enter a candidate into the BRC program portal, the navigator is actually going to search for that candidate and see if we might already have that candidate in our system for you. We will share with you what happens when we do have that candidate, but again, today we're covering the basics for you. John Ryan does not exist in the system, so we are going to create a new application for Mr. Ryan. So you can see that the navigator has chosen that this is a new submission. You then have to choose which program in your umbrella is going to be the original program that Mr. Ryan will be working at. He may work at multiple programs, and that can be handled later on. But let's just say for this candidate, Mr. Ryan's going to work at DK Residential Program 3. Megan also mentioned P numbers. We have the P numbers here. So if you work from P numbers instead of names, you can verify that you're entering to the right program by using the P number. This individual is going to be a BRC program administrator. The choices are employee, volunteer, intern, affiliated person, or BRC program administrator. I, as a licensee for this umbrella, would like to have another individual authorized to log in and enter candidates on my behalf or on our program umbrella's behalf. So Mr. Ryan is going to be entered as a BRC program administrator. And then, as long as his background record check is suitable, he will then be allowed to enter and do exactly what we're doing today. We then get to the personal information. If the individual included a middle name, you want to add that middle name here. And then I'm going to go ahead and enter every field to give you an idea of what the field is all about. So this individual actually goes by his middle name, Andrew Ryan. So we're going to enter that as an alias. If you were to call Mr. Ryan's job and ask for John, they would say, we don't have a John, because they know him by Andrew. So that should be entered as an alias. If Mr. Ryan was adopted and he had a different name along the way, you would enter that name as well. Or of course, if he got married or divorced or had any other name change for any reason. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of this screen and hit next. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to show you that if you do not fill in all the required fields, the navigator is going to let you know that. Megan mentioned that some fields are required. The telephone number field is not required, but we really hope that you would enter it. It is a backup for how we can contact the candidate should we need to during the background record check process. But we're going to go ahead and enter an email address for this individual. If by chance this same email address is already in the navigator system being used, we will be told that. We're going to enter his city of birth because I said he was born in the United States. If he was not born in the United States, I simply need to submit the country in which the individual was born. I do want to make mention, Puerto Rico is actually considered a territory of the United States. So if you have somebody from Puerto Rico, you want to say born in the United States and enter them. You don't want to enter them as a country. So Winchester, Massachusetts, the 6 Social Security are already here. If by any chance you're like, oh, wait, that's not what's on the form, you would then want to abandon this process. You can choose other if that individual chose something other than male or female, or you can choose male or female. When I click next this time, the navigator system is going to go ahead and move along. In this candidate wizard for entering the candidate, it's a 4-part wizard. We entered the personal information. Once the personal information is entered, the navigator actually saves this information for you. So if you get called down the hallway for an emergency and you leave your computer, a couple of things will happen. One, if you've exceeded 15 minutes before you come back, this application will have logged you out. For security, we log you out after 15 minutes of inactivity, and you would need to log back in. When you logged back in, you will search for John Ryan, and I will show you how to search in a few minutes. And John will come back up, and he will come up right to this section because that's where you left off, and we saved it for you. If you scroll to the bottom of this tab, you'll notice Delete Application on the bottom right. This is available to you on tabs 2, 3, and 4. As I said, until you actually click Submit on personal information, we haven't saved anything. But Mr. Ryan, you're in the middle of entering Mr. Ryan, and he calls you back and he says, "Thank you so much. I just got a call and I took another job." So you don't want to waste your time entering Mr. Ryan into the system because he's just going to sit there until we cancel him. And you can click Delete Application yourself. And so, as I say, you can do that anytime prior to the final submission. On the residential address, you want to enter what's on the form. You can use tabs to advance between these fields, or you can use your mouse and clicker, whatever is best for you. Mr. Ryan has a P.O. box, so I would enter that here. If he didn't have a P.O. box and it was same as residential, I would simply click there. Just going to grab something out of my list here. And as Megan explained, if somebody has lived out of state in the last 5 years, you're going to enter it here. Please note, if Mr. Ryan lived at 35 Main Street in Reading, Pennsylvania currently, you would not need to list him as out of state because his current address is out of state. So you don't need to duplicate that. We're going to go ahead and say that this gentleman did live out of state. And I'm just going to enter the dates. If you don't, again, I entered them incorrectly because I tend to use periods. And so now I'm going to enter using the calendar. And I'm going to say, go back to this one. I'm going to use the calendar here. And you'll note that this gentleman lived out of state for 3 years. We look at this last date. So this last date is within 5 years. So we will be checking his out of state. Again, we're going to enter his address. And we're going to go ahead and click Add. Again, as you're doing this, we appreciate you checking your data along the way. I take a look up here and I see, oh, darn, it's not Newport Beach. It was Newport Ledge, California. You can hit the X and it's gone and you can re-enter it. If Mr. Ryan had any other additional out-of-state addresses, you would continue to add them one by one and hit the Add button. We're going to move on and just click Next. And if you notice at the top of the screen, we're now at step 3, which is the identity step. On this screen here, we do have a list of forms that are allowed when the candidate goes and gets fingerprinted. I personally suggest that you download or screenshot this and keep it accessible. It is also included in the email that is sent to the candidate. So when they get their fingerprint email, it will tell them what identification they can bring with them. I'm going to say that the candidate presented to me a driver's license, and I'm going to enter the number for the driver's license, the state. I do want to make note that it cannot be expired. So if I was to enter an expired date, the Navigator system won't like that. We took a scan or you took a photo of that and you want to browse and upload that. And I actually have a folder called Docs for Testing. So these are not real documents, but I'm going to go ahead and upload this picture of a driver's license. And you'll notice that it's here, but I still have to hit the submit button. So I uploaded it. I verified that this is actually the document I want to upload, and I click submit. And if you notice down here, first of all, it now says there's no file selected because I have uploaded it and it appears right here. I can upload further documents if I wanted. The BRC unit at EEC, we hope that you will utilize this functionality, but we do not require it, FYI. The last tab on our list is the consent tab. We strongly recommend that you upload the consent form. So just like we uploaded the other, we can upload a consent form. I do want to pause. We accept PDFs, JPEGs, TIFF files, XLS files from Excel, document files from Word. We do not accept PowerPoint presentations for uploads. So any of those formats are good. I'm just going to say that we have a consent form here. I'm going to click open. And you'll notice it works identical to the prior screen. And we're going to go ahead and click submit. This means that the consent form, the identification, everything is now going to be on the Navigator system in the BRC program portal once we confirm and consent and submit this person. So I'm going to go ahead and submit the application, and you'll read that you need to sign that, hey, any errors will delay possible processing. So that's why, again, if you can take your time and make sure that you're entering the information correctly, that's greatly appreciated. If you're not sure, you got interrupted for whatever reason, hit cancel and go back. You can go back all the way to step 1, and you can move through the process a second time if you like. Once you do that, you'll come to this same OK button. I'm going to say I'm pretty confident that the data I entered was accurate, and I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice that I'm brought back to what we affectionately call the roster screen for the BRC program portal. I want to take a moment. I mentioned that I would show you how to search. So if I wanted to search for John Ryan, I would type in his name here and I would hit enter. And here's John Ryan's record all by itself. We have his name, the role that you entered him for. I want to note that we have this little icon with 3 dots, and it shows you the aliases for which Mr. Ryan had entered. He's a new submission when you entered him, that it has been submitted. His fingerprint has not been processed. He's in process and pending. I want to take a moment and just go back to this screen and mention to you that if I wanted to search, if you recollect, Mr. Ryan, I said that he was also known as Andrew. I could also, if he were to call in on the telephone and say, this is Andrew Ryan calling, if you searched for him, you would find him because our search looks for both. And I think that's important because people do use different names. I myself, Michelle is my middle name. So oftentimes, most of the phone calls into my home come into my legal name. Let me take a moment. I do want to take you back just quickly to our dashboard, which is where we logged in originally. We will be working with this in sessions 2 and 3 in more detail. But if you should leave this meeting and go on and log in today, you're going to see people in certain categories. This brings up everybody in the umbrella. Confirm employment. That means that I have 10 people in my umbrella who have been deemed suitable or not suitable. And I, as the program representative, need to make a decision as to whether I want to hire them or not hire them. And in this particular case, if we click on those, we see 10 people. Green means they're suitable. Red or bright pink, whatever color, means they're not suitable. And you would click on your actions button and you would take an action of hiring or not hiring. I'm going to go back to this screen for a second. A saved submission. Remember I mentioned the emergency down the hall and you had to run down the hall? This is a saved submission. Samuel Jones was entered earlier and he is in a saved status. I can click his name. And when I was called to run down the hall, I was on the identity page. So it brings me right back to that. It's very important to note that saved submissions have never been submitted. So if you have a bunch of these on your roster, feel free to go in and delete them if they're from 6 months ago, a year ago, and that candidate's not going to process, or finish them, finish them up. I also want to note that you'll see that we have other categories. We also have what I consider to be a very important category, and that is the not suitable category. I'm going to view Mary Beth Miller. Mary Beth Miller is not suitable, and I should take action on her right away. Now, Mary Beth could be on my staff, and she came up for renewal, or she could have just been a new entry. I'm going to edit her employment, and I'm going to mark that I'm not hiring her, or I'm ending her employment, and I'm going to save. And then when I go back to my dashboard, you'll notice she no longer appears here. So in my opinion, this is something you want to keep right down to the 0, because you want to make sure that you don't have a not suitable person working in your program. And you want to keep them off keep your applicants tab clean. I was asked to show one more thing during this session today. And so what I'm going to show you is I'm going to find somebody from yesterday, hopefully. Maybe not. I'm going to look at Carol Cole. So Carol Cole, the first thing I'm going to do is actually change her email address. She is a BRC program, going to be a BRC program administrator, and she would like to use a different email address for that purpose. So I can change her email at any time. And you'll notice that that's the email that I have here for her. I'm also going to change her role, and I'm going to promote her to a BRC program administrator, and I'm going to mark her as hired. And I'm going to click Save. You'll notice that that information is now saved here. I can only do that because she is suitable. If she was still in process, I could not promote her or hire her. I can do that because she is completed. Now, if I did everything correctly, I should receive an email for Carol. Please note, I am using a same email account for training purposes. Here is the email that Carol would receive in her email account. It comes from EEC Background Check Unit, invitation to use the BRC program portal. And you can see it says it went to Carol Cole's email. Welcome, you've been authorized to utilize. So this is the email that you received when you were entered into the Navigator and you were found suitable as a BRC program admin or as a licensee, suitable and hired. You received this email. If you don't have it and you need some help, our contact center is happy to help you. I'm hoping that you've maybe already done this, but you're going to go ahead and click on BRC Program Portal, where it says a portal account has been created for you. The screen is very similar to that login screen that I showed you earlier, and your email is pre-populated. You cannot change that. That's the email that we provisioned. And then you're going to enter a password. You're going to confirm a new password. And you're going to click Create. And if you recollect, when I signed in, I had to go through multi-factor authentication, and you have to do that as well. So Carol Cole, verification is necessary. No error messages yet. Send the verification code, and I'm going to go back to the email. And you'll notice usually comes in pretty quickly. We do ask that you give it up to 5 minutes. But here, Microsoft sends out this email on behalf of mass.gov. And then here is the code that I am going to take. I'm going to enter it here. Going to verify the code. I'm verified. I'm going to continue. Only during the setup process do you go through that verification twice. And here you'll notice Carol is now logged in, Carol Cole, to the same umbrella that I was logged in during this training. And maybe she's only responsible for DK Residential Program 2. She can click here and she can see that she has one person to confirm employment and she has one saved submission. So she now has the exact same experience that you have in your role. And to make note, a BRC program admin can be entered by a licensee or another active BRC program admin. So thank you so much for watching and listening. Again, we have our ticketing system if you have any concerns. We also have our contact center, which is available to assist you. And we hope you are able to use the BRC program portal to its fullest extent. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. And again, we will have a part 2 session where we will talk more in depth about the use of program portal. And as Michelle mentioned, our contact center for any questions using the system, you can reach them at 617-988-7481. And again, thank you for joining our training today.